Hello everybody, welcome to the first of 13 videos that I will be doing for my channel. And that is my personal Oscar lineups from the year 2010 all the way up to this past season for the films of 2022. It is such an honor to actually do this because I've been wanting to do this for quite a long time now. And now I am finally ready to do these. Before we begin with my nominations here for the films of 2010, I would like to describe what this series is kind of going to be about. You have seen like many videos of their personal lineups. Well, for me, I am specifically going through not all, but most of the Oscar-nominated films in their respective years, and it depends on what eligible films that can qualify for my personal nominations. And they are any of the films up for Best Picture, the rest in the 7 out of the big 8 categories, director, the acting categories, and the screenplays, all the films nominated for Best Animated, Best Documentary, and Best International Feature, and 1 or 2, or rarely 3, and extremely rare 4, bonus films in the technical categories that could have potentially would have gotten in somewhere in the big 8 categories, or just a Best Picture nomination with tech nominations alone. As for these nominations in general, it will just be the big 8 nominations: adapted screenplay, original screenplay, supporting actor, supporting actor, actress, actor, director, and best picture, but as well as 2 additional categories. One category that the Oscars has not yet created yet, a best ensemble, and I am combining all 3 featured film categories into one as best animated or documentary or international feature. Because with the limitations of like 15 films or even any additional ones in the big 8 or just in the text that didn't get in those categories might qualify, but it really depends on the eligibility requirements. For those who want to know what films that are going to be eligible, I will show them up, but you will also see them in the description below. And in the description will also be the winners that you can actually see, as this video will be just showing the nominations. I will not be reviewing the winners in these videos. You can check them out in the description below. There is also going to be throughout this a couple of nominations, a couple of controversial picks, mostly because of some of the people behind the films, whether it be the actors themselves. They could rely on any controversies, or if like a movie that has a very controversial subject, or has gained controversy years later, that hasn't got a great representation throughout in recent years. There could be some nominations here that might be filler spots. I might actually be telling you what they could be, but I don't think I will. And also, for this year in particularly, there is one performance that I had a massive debate whether to put this particular actor in the category where this person is right now, or when the time of the movie had came out, because this person is a transgender man. So the question is, do I want to put him in supporting actor now for the role he did back in 2010? Or do I put him in the supporting actors category of where he was by the time the movie came out? It is definitely a massive question and debate when it comes to this particular actor, which in this case is Elliot Page. The question is, would I put him in supporting actor for Inception or supporting actress for Inception when he was still then Ellen Page by the time the movie came out? It's also a similar question you would have for your personal lineup for 2007. Would you still put her in lead actress for Juno, or would you put him now in supporting actor as he's now Elliot? I would say any of the roles he did when he was Ellen Page, they would go in the actress category. Any of the roles where he is now as Elliot, they would go in the actor category. I know it's a very massive debate, but I would say since you cannot change the past, any of the roles he did when he was still Ellen would be in the actress category. Any of the roles he would do as Elliot now, actor category. And speaking of names, I will be butchering some of these, most notably some of the international names. And also for the bonus films in the technical categories, it depends on how many nominations it could have gotten, and maybe even some bigger wins in the technical categories that could have got nominated, which in this case for 2010, it is Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. And finally, these nominations are all in my opinion. So if you do not like some of these picks, that's fine. There might be a couple of shocking films that will be kind of surprising that doesn't make in my list, either if they were not as good as some of the films I have nominated here, or I consider them overrated, whether it be just boring or that just kind of ticked me off. And as you might have told by the opening music, I'm doing in the old style fashion of how they announce their nominations. I know from like the 90s to the 2000s and early, like until the films of 2011, before they kind of did randomly for 2012 and 13 until they started with the films of 2014 announcing all the categories. So just remember, it's just the Big 8, Ensemble, and the combination featured film category that I decided to do. Another thing is, there will be actual things that you might not consider would be eligible for the Oscars, but they are eligible for my personal lineup. Most notably, voice acting performances are eligible in these acting categories, because I'm one of the fewest people that does respect the media of animation. Even documentary films are going to be qualified for their screenplay categories if they do have a screenplay. So, yeah, so there is a bit of a fairness for all of these, and I can't wait to do this. So, with that being said, let us begin. First up, here are the list of movies in alphabetical order that are eligible for my personal lineup. The 2010 nominees for Best Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role are Lubna Azabal in Incendies, Helena Bonham Carter in The King's Speech, Mélissa Désormeaux-Poulin in Incendies, Lesley Manville in Another Year, and then Ellen Page in Inception. For Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role, the nominees are Ned Beatty in Toy Story 3, Johnny Depp in Alice in Wonderland, Andrew Garfield in The Social Network, Armie Hammer in The Social Network, and Jeffrey Rush in The King's Speech. For Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role, the nominees are Nicole Kidman in Rabbit Hole, Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone, Natalie Portman in Black Swan, Mia Wasikowska in Alice in Wonderland, and Michelle Williams in Blue Valentine. For Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role, the nominees are Javier Bardem in Biutiful, Aaron Eckhart in Rabbit Hole, Colin Firth in The King's Speech, James Franco in 127 Hours, and Ryan Gosling in Blue Valentine. For Best Achievement in Directing, Tim Burton for Alice in Wonderland, Josh Fox for Gasland, Chris Sanders and Dean Dubois for How to Train Your Dragon, Denis Villeneuve for Incendies, and Christopher Nolan for Inception. For Original Screenplay, the nominees are Mike Leigh for Another Year, Derek Cianfrance, Joey Curtis, and Camille Delevingne for Blue Valentine, Josh Fox for Gasland, Christopher Nolan for Inception, and David Seidler for The King's Speech. For Adapted Screenplay, we have Linda Wolverton for Alice in Wonderland, Will Davies, Dean Dubois, and Chris Sanders for How to Train Your Dragon, Denis Villeneuve and Valerie Bertrand-Champagne for Incendies, Danny Boyle and Simon Beaufoy for 127 Hours, and David Lindsay Abery for Rabbit Hole. For Best Ensemble, we have Another Year, Incendies, Inception, The King's Speech, and Toy Story 3. For Best Animated or Documentary or International Feature, the nominees are Gasland, Josh Fox, How to Train Your Dragon, Chris Sanders and Dean Dubois, Incendies, Denis Villeneuve. Restrepo, Tim Hetherington and Sebastian Junger. And Toy Story 3, Lee Unkrich. And finally, I am pleased to announce my personal 10 films, and yes, it will be 10 for the entire series. Nominees for Best Motion Picture of 2010 for me are Alice in Wonderland, Richard D. Zunick, Joe Roth, Susanna Todd, and Jennifer Todd, producers. Another Year, Georgina Lowe, producer. Gasland, Trish Aldisek, Molly Gandor, Josh Fox, and David Roma, producers. How to Train Your Dragon, Bonnie Arnold, producer. Ensemble, Luc Delay and Kim McCraw, producers. Inception, Emma Thomas and Christopher Nolan, producers. 127 Hours, Danny Boyle, Christian Coulson, and Jonathan Smithson, producers. Rabbit Hole, Gigi Persiker, Nicole Kidman, Paris Arar, Leslie Erndane, and Dean Vanich, producers. Restrepo, Tim Hetherington and Sebastian Junger, producers. And Toy Story 3, Darla K. Anderson, producer. To see who the winners were in these personal categories, check out in the description below. Next time, we go into 2011. Thank you, everybody, and make sure you subscribe.